Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Duel College, which is going to be one of two little series that I am starting on my channel. We've got Duel College and we've got Duel School. This is the more advanced one, which I am starting off with first because it is something that I understand how to do a little better, because I can kind of just speak my mind and it will fit. So, Dual College is advanced topics. We're going to be discussing how to improve your game sense, how to use your cards, what cards to use. And Dual School is going to be more how to play the game. We can get into that in a separate video. Shout out to Hunter once again for the billionth time for making all of my ideas for me, apparently. That's just how it's going to be now, I guess. Um, I have a channel, and they have ideas, and they are a friend. And I take their ideas because they have good ideas that they offer me. So today is hand traps. We're going to talk about hand traps, what hand traps exist, what they are, how to use them, why they cause immense suffering in this game, and how to use them in the current format, eventually. Hopefully. So what format are we currently in? We're in effectively Malice format, but we've got some Mitsurugi coming on, where Malice format is coming to an end, if you will. So first we have the one and only Maxi. Maxi as a hand trap is just it's always going to be in every deck when it's legal. It says if your opponent special summons a monster, immediately draw one card. Now, Maxi does have its downfalls. The main one being that there's a lot of ways to beat it. So if your opponent has an Ash Blossom, it gets negated. If your opponent has a Crossout, it's negated. If your opponent has pretty much anything that says no to this, Called by the Grave, you name it, it gets negated. Which is why another card is good, and that is the one and only Mokarmi Fulos. Mokarmi Fulos is basically the same thing as Maxi, but with one restriction. That is, if you control no cards. Which means that going second, and you open a Fulos and a Maxi, you fire the Fulos first, hope it gets negated, and then Maxi. That is the power of Mokarmi Fulos. That is where you want to be using it. Can you use it by itself? Absolutely. I wouldn't recommend it, if you can avoid it. But, if you only draw it, it's your only hand trap, and it's your only hope, absolutely, Mokarmi Fulos is a decent hand trap, and I would be running it right now. Call by the Grave. I do want to bring this up and discuss it briefly, since Call by the Grave does technically get called a hand trap by some people. I think of it as more of an anti-hand trap. Call by the Grave banishes a monster from an opponent's graveyard, and its effects are negated until the next turn at the end of the turn. So, is this good? Yes, absolutely. Should you be running it at 2, which is the maximum that you can run it at right now? Yes, absolutely. Run this card, use as many of it as you can. Because when your opponent maxes you, when your opponent full loses you, you need to be ready, because that is the minigame that decides who wins or loses in this format. And it's depressing, but that's the way it be. That's the way it is. Same thing with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring has been considered the best hand trap in the TCG for years, mainly because Maxi is banned. If Maxi was not banned, it would be the second best. If Fulos was also available, it would be the third best. But what does it do? It stops you from adding a card from the deck to the hand, special summoning from the deck, or sending a card from the deck to the graveyard. It's a hard once per turn. Is it good? Yes, but not as good as it used to be. Decks have gotten so much faster. Decks have found so many ways to work around Ash Blossom as a popular card, placing cards directly onto the field that aren't monsters. Excuse me, I'm very bad at words occasionally. My brain glitches. Just not sending cards from the deck to the graveyard, not special summoning directly from the deck, placing a monster in the spell and trap zone, and looking at you, Centurion. There are so many ways to get around Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring in the modern day that the main thing it gets used for is how do I put this without sounding just very spiteful? The main thing it gets used for is stopping Maxi. And that's kind of depressing, to be honest, but that is the reason that you play it, and it's a good reason to play it, because it works. So yeah, you will be running Ash Blossom if you're playing properly. Now, the thing that's worth discussing, but not really quite as relevant, is the Ghost Sisters. The Ghost Sisters are alright. They're not Ash Blossom, but they are better than nothing. Like, we have Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. If you pull this, it's okay. But there are a lot of decks that really don't care if you destroy a card on the field when it activates its effect, unless it happens to be a spell or trap. If you negate the effect of a, let's say, Tournament Scream this way, it's not ideal, but it does stop it from activating again. Branded Regain definitely suffers the same fate. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, not the best. I wouldn't play it, but it's worth mentioning. Ghost Bell in Haunted Mansion, on the other hand. Now, this is a decent card. It does stop you from playing in the graveyard, and this is a thing that a lot of decks do. For example, my deck, Evil Twins. If you have a Ghost Bell in Haunted Mansion against me, I will hate you, because it's so good at saying no to graveyard play. But once again, this is one of those situational cards that, while you do love to see it, and it feels so good when the situation comes, the rest of the time it's just not that useful, and you don't want to see it. What else do we have? We have the one and only Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. Now, I was pretty excited for this card when it got released. I'm not going to lie to you. That was like 5 years ago, but it's such a funny concept. Just blow things up, and death, and suffering, and it's amazing. But, once again, if your opponent's not playing, like, monsters that can burn them for 4,000 plus damage, negating the one thing is not ideal. Especially when if your opponent special summons a monster face-up effect, when you have Effect Veiler that does the same thing to any monster. Really not the best. So you're not really ideally going to want to be playing that. But we do have Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Now, I will say this, not the best in Master Duel. You should never play this in Master Duel unless you, like, really specifically hate, like, I don't know, Malice, and you want to get rid of a specific thing. But even then, this is not the best thing to play against Malice. I beg of you, don't play this against Malice. The interaction is hilarious. Banish a Malice extra deck monster. They trigger its effect and its special summons. Just don't do that. There are certain decks you may want to play this against if it happens to dominate a format or you're expecting it. But no, this is mainly a TCG OCG card. If your opponent is playing something specific or you have a specific deck that just stops you, then there's a valid reason for playing this. I can't say not to. What else have we got? We have the one and only Infinite Impermanence. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. One of my favorite hand traps for being purely annoying. It's an Effect Veiler, effectively. It's Effect Veiler, but it also has a second ability if you go first and set it, which negates spell and trap cards. How often will your opponent forget about the Imperm column thing and place a card there? Not very often, but if your opponent's feeling a little confident, feeling themselves, you can occasionally get a little catch off of that. I like Infinite Impermanence just because of how consistent it is. It does the same thing. People don't see it coming, but there are definitely a lot better things to be playing. And then we have Infinite Impermanence's cousin in doing exactly the same thing that it already does, and that's Effect Veiler. What is Effect Veiler? Well, I'm surprised you haven't heard of it, because Effect Veiler is the original hand trap. That's right. During your opponent's main phase, send this card from your hand to the graveyard, negate the effects of one effect monster your opponent controls. That is what it does. That's basically Infinite Impermanence, but with fewer effects. And then we have an interesting set of new cards, which I cannot spell, apparently. We have Dominus Purge, Dominus Impulse. Dominus Impulse is the more commonly used of the two cards, but they basically do the same thing, except different ways. This one says, adds a card from the deck to the hand. This one says, special summons a monsters. They're both ways to disrupt combos, and they both have different demands of you. Dominus Purge stops you from playing Dark, Water, or Fire monsters for the rest of the duel. Dominus Impulse stops you from playing Light, Earth, and Wind monsters for the rest of the duel. Would I want to play either of these cards? No, I play Twins. I'm a Light and Dark deck. Either of these cards screw me over. But if you don't have one of the attributes in your deck that is mentioned on one of these cards, you absolutely want to play it in this format, because it is so devastating to have a right out of your hand effect like this that just says no. And I would play it, but I can't play it. I can't play it. What else do we have? We have the one and only Frame Gear. I can type. Apparently I can't type. Never mind. I cannot type. Frame Gear archetype. Now, this set of cards was a very popular set of hand traps for a little while. The most popular being the one and only Frame Gear Gamma, which activates when your opponent activates a monster effect and you control no monsters. You can summon it from your hand, negate the activation, destroy the monster. It summons Sci-Frame Driver with it. Downside of this archetype is you have to play Sci-Frame Driver, and nobody wants to play Sci-Frame Driver because why would you want to play Sci-Frame Driver? It's a normal monster, it doesn't do anything, nobody likes it. But Gamma's okay by itself. I wish the rest of the Sci-Frame gears were ever so slightly better. Like Sci-Frame Gear Delta, when your opponent activates a spell card while you control no monsters, that's okay. Then we have cards like Sci-Frame Gear Beta, when an opponent's monster declares an attack while you control no monsters. Yes, that's going to happen so very often. Thank you, Sci-Frame Gears. You're amazing. And yeah, no. So I wouldn't play this archetype in the modern day. Sci-Frame Gear Gamma, alright card, but being forced to play Driver to use it, not the best. It's just really not the best. Now, there is one exception that I will make, and I do want to segue into this card anyway, and that is if you're playing this card with Artifact Lancia, which is a very fun and good card, which basically says no to any banishing. Very fun if you want to counter a Call by the Grave, very fun if you want to counter anyone playing Malice. So if you are running your standard 2 copies of Maxi and at least 2 copies of Mulkarmi Fulos, you'll probably want to be running Lancia as a suggestion, just a thought, to stop anybody playing Call by the Grave and just saying no to your existence. This is something that I'm trying to work into my decks. I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but I have faith. We also have a bunch of other different Artifact cards, but Artifact really hasn't seen a lot of popularity in play outside of Lancia ever since Artifact Scythe got banned. Artifact Scythe was one of the funniest things, which basically said your opponent cannot special summon, which is another way of saying combo decks can't play the game today. So yeah, that was a very good card. It's gone now, unfortunate, but it needed to go. Let's be honest, it needed to go. Artifact Lancia, still great. There's a couple other semi-common hand traps in the game, like Chaos Hunter and Skullmeister, which are basically like affect variable level threats. And if you have a certain thing that you really don't want your opponent to do, you can play them. But I wouldn't altogether recommend it. It's not the best. So yeah, that's the general rundown of hand traps in this format. If I happen to miss anything or went insane and made a ridiculous comment, please feel free to inform me. Yes, inform me. Dimension Shifter also exists. I almost forgot that, but we don't need to talk about Dimension Shifter anymore. Malice exists. No one will play it. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for watching this video. If you like the format, let me know. There will be more videos like this, and be prepared for Duel School as well. That's going to be a thing, as long as I remember to name it that. Somebody will remember. I'm sure Hunter will remind me, because Hunter's amazing like that. But yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. And as always, have a good night.